Good morning children, I'm just back with a new video, and today I will discuss about rise of Napoleon's power. How did Napoleon come to the power in the European subcontinent? How did he come? How did he sit on the throne of France? In this video we will just learn it. So let's begin. I'm just reading this passage from page number 38. If you're having the book with you right now, you may just look from page number 38. The next step in the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte was the display of his skill in moving troops rapidly against the Austrians. He was also successful, winning victory over anti-France powers of Europe in one battle after another and forced them to make peace. So last day we had just read about the 13th Vendemiaire, by which we could see that on 5th of October 1795, the Parisian mob or the sans-culottes, they had just given a threat to the French National Constituent Assembly or the National Convention. This came to be known as the 13th of Vendemiaire in French history. So now we are just going to read another important factor that led a very smooth fact for winning, for getting the victory and to sit on the throne of France by Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon's expedition of Egypt in the year of 1798, however, was not successful. When he was chosen as the commander general of French army, one after another, one battle after another, he won. And finally, what happened? Though it was very much unfortunate for Napoleon Bonaparte, as because in the year of 1798, when the Egypt expedition of Napoleon Bonaparte started, he failed to just win over this war. He was defeated by the British Admiral Nelson in the Battle of the Nile. So this was the second one. Previously it was in the year of 1798 when the Egypt expedition took place. There also Napoleon Bonaparte was defeated, and now also he was defeated in the Battle of Nile by the British officer Admiral Nelson. This is very important. If you're having the book with you right now, you may just underline this sentence. This is very important question for you. I repeat that in the Battle of Nile, Napoleon Bonaparte was badly defeated by the British officer Admiral Nelson. In any case, the military exploits of Napoleon against the European coalition against France made him popular with the French people, as he had increased the prestige of France. Can you just remember that the first European coalition was just made to just destroy the unity inside the country, inside the France. So that's why the European coalition, they were very much conscious about their prestige, about their vanity, even in fact about their monarchical administration and the government. So that's why when the Napoleon Bonaparte was given the responsibility as a commander general, he did a splendid job here. There is no shred of doubt to say that he had played an active role to suppress all those revolts, the movements, the upsurge that had just come forward outside of the country, apart from France. After his successful feat abroad, when Napoleon entered France, the French people welcomed him as their hero. Like when Napoleon just came back, as because I already told you that after French Revolution, even though when the revolution was going on, the French Revolution was just continuing during that time, the external and internal condition of France was not at all very good. To just overcome from all these obstructions, obstacles and hindrances, Napoleon Bonaparte was the ideal one for all the Frenchmen, and he became successful. So that's why when he just came back to his own territory, when he just came back to his own country, all the common people, they had welcomed Napoleon Bonaparte as their real hero. Meanwhile, the Directory administration in France had been fast becoming unpopular. Yes, the Directory government was not too much enthusiastic in reforming, in doing any kind of reforms in the French society. So that's why the common people, especially the peoples from the third estate, they were not very much happy or satisfied with this new government. It means the Directory government. So the popularity of the Directory government went into ruin. The directors failed to satisfy the aspirations or the expectations of the people. After his return to Paris in 1799, Napoleon carefully assessed the situation. Napoleon Bonaparte himself was very cunning. He was a brilliant he was a masterpiece in his own administration. So that's why when he just came back to France in the year of 1799, he had assessed all the important events that were occurring inside his country. Taking advantage of the unpopularity of the Directory administration, Napoleon joined hands with a section of the directors to overthrow it. So amongst all the directors, means without informing anyone, they had just joined their hands with Napoleon Bonaparte. It became quite easier for Napoleon Bonaparte to get the support from all the directors inside the French administration, inside the Directory government of France prevailed at that time. In this way, Napoleon became successful to just gain the faith of the common people. Even he started to just pressurize all the directors in the Directory government. So ultimately, by a military coup here refers to removal of a government by force or by muscle power, as because Napoleon Bonaparte, he did not do any kind of plebiscite over there, as because no voting system was done. We know it very well that to become means to be chosen as a president, the prime minister, or any kind of political leader, a voting system is very compulsory, voting system is very mandatory. But Napoleon, he did not just follow all these rules and guidelines. So that's why by his military coup, by his military power, by his military force, by his muscle power, he came to the France, he sat on the throne of France. So that's why this incident came to be known as the 18th Brumaire in the French history. And I completely forgot to tell you the date. That was obviously 9th of November 1799. This is very important to underline this sentence. The question may come from here, that on 9th of November 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte, he became successful to just overthrow all the directors' powers, all the Directory government from their own position. He became the actual administrator of France on 9th of November. It was in 1799. In that very day, means on that very day, Napoleon Bonaparte, he had just seized the power. He had just removed all the powers, all the prestige and the vanities of the directors or the Directory government, and he became the actual administrator of France. And this event came to be known as the 18th Brumaire in the French history, as because of the English calendar, it was equivalent to the 18th day of the Brumaire month as per the French Revolutionary calendar. So that's why this incident came to be known as the 18th Brumaire in the history of the French or the France. Okay, so 13th Vendemiaire and 18th Brumaire, that can be too much confused fact to all the children. So this is my recommendation. You please just go through several times these two factors. One is called the 13th Vendemiaire and the second thing is the 18th Brumaire. You have to just memorize, you have to just read these things at least 4 or 5 times or more than 5 times. Reorganization of France by Napoleon. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he was entrusted by his people. So the common peoples, they also desired that Napoleon will obviously do something good, something better for his countrymen, for mankind. He will serve good. So that's why in the year of 1799, after Napoleon had seized power, he initiated an administration popularly known as consulate. So I repeat that the consulate system or the consulate kind of administration was started. It was just introduced in France by Napoleon Bonaparte. France was under the rule of the consulate between 1799 to 1804. I repeat, France was under the domination of the consulate government since 1799 to 1804. Under the consulate, France was ruled by a small council consisting of the 3 consuls. So total in the consulate system, if the question comes that in the consulate system how many consuls were there, it was 3 consuls were there, and under their initiative, under their supervision, the consulate system was going on. So in that consulate system, Napoleon Bonaparte, he was the head, means he had to just supervise all the works, all the activities of the consulates, means all the consulates, they were just doing so. The responsibilities of the each were totally separate. The first chamber was to initiate a bill, the second was to discuss it, and the third was to pass the bill, and the fourth was to consider the constitutional tenability of the bill. So this was very important initiative that was started by Napoleon Bonaparte at that time. We know that Montesquieu, in his book The Spirit of Laws, he had given the idea several times that the power, it should be just divided. It should be just divided amongst the different groups, as because if someone has acquired, if someone has just conquered all the powers in his own hand, he or she can be tyrant. So that's why the power should be separated equally, and for that reason Napoleon exactly he did the same thing. The first chamber in this consulate system, their responsibility, their task was to initiate a bill. The second chamber's task was to just discuss the bill. The third one, they had to just pass the bill, and the fourth, they had to just check the constitutional tenability, whether this thing is very important for the society, whether the bill is very much important or the lucrative for the society. To just discuss all this fact, to check out the tenability, means the constitutional tenability, the fourth chamber was created. And don't just forget that each and every single chamber was separated from one to another. It means the first chamber could not provoke, it means the first chamber could not just pressurize the second chamber. Third chamber was not just supposed to maintain, not just supposed to listen everything from the second chamber. Yes, obviously the coordination was there, the relation was very much coordinated, there was no lack of coordination amongst the four different chambers, but most importantly, not a single chamber could pressurize the second chamber. The second chamber could not pressurize the third chamber. The third chamber could not just pressurize the fourth chamber. They could just work there independently. They could just work independently. There was no obstruction in front of them. This was very good. That was initiated, that was introduced by Napoleon Bonaparte during that time. We must just appreciate that. As a matter of fact, the system snatched away of all the powers from the legislature and all the powers of the state centered around Napoleon himself. So it was under the consulate administration that Napoleon devoted himself to the task internal reconstruction. Internal reconstruction was very much necessary at the time, as because means we could see that the legislature was divided into four chambers previously, and when Napoleon came to the power and he had just held the undisputed powers in his hand, and he became the actual administrator in France. So that was very good. Means as a matter of fact, the system snatched away all the powers from the legislature and all the powers of the state centered around Napoleon himself. So previously we could see that the council, or the legislature, was divided into four chambers. Now Napoleon, he has become the most undisputed power of the administration in France. Aims and objectives of the reforms of Napoleon. So what were the basic aims and objectives of Napoleon at the time? Between 1799 and 1893, Napoleon at the first consul was free to devote his energies to the internal reconstruction of France. He was very much devoted for the internal reconstruction, as because this was very much mandatory for Frenchmen. As an administrator and a new reformer, Napoleon was to some extent influenced by the contemporary philosophers from the history of England, Greece, etc. So he had a very close contact with different historians, the administrators, the philosophers. So for this reason, it was very much easier for Napoleon to just come to know that what could be the most important guidelines, to make the guidelines or the rules, regulations, principles for the Frenchmen in his new constitution. It was very enthusiastic fact for him, as because he had just come to the close contact with different historians from England, Greece, etc. He learned the lessons about the need of the establishment of a welfare state and reforms for the welfare, as because he knew it very well that without reforming the society cannot be just means revolutionized. It cannot be just become liberal, or the rationalism cannot be just exposed properly. So that's why he became quite enthusiastic to do all these things, as because he himself was the worshipper of the internal reconstruction of France, and obviously he did it so means it was a splendid job by him. Now we'll just continue page number 40, because last video we had just discussed about everything from page number 39. So today we'll just discuss from page number 40. Jury came to be much restricted. The method of arbitrary imprisonment of the pre-revolutionary days was revived. Pre-revolutionary days, when you can just remember later the cachet or the royal rate by which any person of France could be just arrested or could be sent behind the bar without having any trial. This was a special kind of power that was held by the all French monarchs, so by which the peoples, they were exploited in different ways. So this is for the first time we could see that Napoleon Bonaparte, he had just revived all these important factors, and he told that special prisons will be just established for the political offenders. If any person, he does any kind of political offense, means if he is being just objectified at the time, he can be just put behind the bar, he can be just imprisoned, but the trial will be there. The code, while rejected the democratic principles of the revolutionary France, adopted altogether a new concept of property rights and rights of citizenship. Previously, property rights was absolutely neglected, it was just rejected, but nowadays the property rights, it was just given in some extent by Napoleon Bonaparte. And not only that, the rights of citizenship, this was quite a good job that was done by Napoleon Bonaparte at the time, as because citizenship is very much important, it is very much necessary. So the citizenship right, or the right of citizenship, it was also just provided. While feudalism and feudal privileges were destructed, the feudalism, this was the curse of the society. As usual, I do say every time that feudalism is not very good for the society, as because in feudalism, the exploitation, the exploitative character or the nature of the feudalism can be very much harmful for the society. So that's why the feudalism was just rejected, it was just removed from the society permanently by Napoleon Bonaparte. And obviously this was a stunning blow. Surely this was a hard blow for all the monarchs, especially the first estate and the second estate, because they were just dependent on these feudalism. So that's why when the feudalism was just removed from the society, from the French administration, they were very much disappointed with that. The code instead on equal division of estates among sons. So equal share should be just given to every single son. Means suppose the eldest son, he is just demanding that he will take the major portion of his father's property after his sad demise, or the after his death. It cannot be done, as because the property should be just equally given to all the sons equally. But children, you must think that the sons refers to the male sons, means the natural heirs. Obviously they will be here, the daughters or the females, they were just rejected to just get the property rights, as because Napoleon, he himself thought that the women or the females, they are not well capable to just to put their own pressure to just keep their own lands and their property rights keeping safe. So that's why he felt that the women should not be just given the rights to just any kind of property rights, so the proprietary rights was just neglected for them. It has been pointed out by George Roudet that the most important of all articles of the code was that which insisted on equal division of estates amongst sons. Thus it may be said that the work of reorganization of France affected by Napoleon denied liberty that was one of the major ideals of the French Revolution. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he had just rejected the ideal of liberalism. If the society was liberal, if the society could think in their liberal way, so women could not be just objectified, the women could not be just denied from their own property rights, especially from their father's property. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he tried a lot, he tried so many times to just do the reform in the society, but finally he failed to do so, as because that gained nothing. It was that just did not just get any momentum. Now the last topic of today, obviously this is very important for you also. This is the continental system of France. Very important, it's very important for your exam also. So please listen carefully. What was the continental system? Now this is for the first time, I'm just going to utter a Bengali word for you so that you can just remember it so well. Continental system here refers to Mahadeshiyo Oborodh Protha. Like continent, we know the Bengali meaning of continent, it's Mahadesh. and Oborod, continental. Oborod here refers to not to give the recognition or the affiliation to just do the trade inside the country or outside of the country. Means outside of the country means in some extent this right must be taken by the government or the existing administration. So first of all, you must know that what was the continental system, who had introduced the continental system, and when was it introduced. I must tell you that the continental system, it was a cowardice policy. First of all, it was a cowardice policy that was just introduced by Napoleon himself, continental system, as because when he went for a war with Britain, he had just failed several times, as because in navy, in naval power, Britain was quite powerful. The power of the Britain, especially in the naval, in navy, it could not be just ignored. She was very dangerous in navy, you know it very well. So that's why after a very hard trial, when Napoleon Bonaparte, he also tried a lot to just defeat Britain's army, means the Britain's navy. Finally, when he was destructed absolutely, and means when he just came to know that this will not be possible for Napoleon Bonaparte to just defeat England in navy, so that's why he just took another step. It was a cowardice policy that was introduced by him to just defeat England. Now, what was the continental system? Let's have a look. After the fatal defeat in the Battle of Trafalgar, it was in the year of 1805. This is very important. Do underline if you're having the pencil or the pen with you right now. The Battle of Trafalgar, it was just happened in the year of 1805 between Napoleon Bonaparte and the English, means Britain or the England. Napoleon realized that it would not be possible for him to defeat England that was very strong as a naval power. That's what exactly I've just told you a few moments ago, that means in naval power, in naval army, means in navy, most importantly, Britain was so much powerful. It could not be just, the power of Britain could not be just ignored anyway. So hence Napoleon devised a peculiar scheme to sever the commercial, economics, or the connections of England, whom he called as a nation of shopkeepers, as because England was the pioneer center of the industrial revolution. You know it very well that in the year of 1760, in the mid of the 18th century, the industrial revolution took place in England. So that's why since that time England became one of the richest country in the European subcontinent, and since that time England, means Britain, used to just export all the goods, the raw materials in different countries. So that's why in this way, by doing trade and commerce, England became so rich. And this was the main reason for what Napoleon became discontented, and finally he told that England should be called the nation of shopkeepers. Okay. In 1806, he declared a naval blockade against England through the Berlin Decree. So the Berlin Decree was just issued by Napoleon Bonaparte in the year of 1806 against England. I just repeat, it was a decree that was introduced. Decree, something kichu jari kora, mane কোনো কিছু বন্ধের জন্য কোনো ঘোষণা করা. This is called the decree that was introduced, that was just uttered by Napoleon Bonaparte in the year of 1806. He told the main object was to just prevent the countries allied to Napoleon from business with England, allied to Napoleon from doing business with England. It means not a single country. Those who had a very good relation with Napoleon or with his country, they will not be just allowed to continue their trade and commerce with England in future. Means how ridiculous it was. It means sometimes with the Bengali peoples we say there is a proverb, hate na mere bhate mara, mane when we are not capable enough to just defeat our enemy, we are taking another path, we are taking means we are just making different type of gestures to just defeat our enemy. The Napoleon also just means was proved to do that, as because when he just felt that he could not just get a read over the England's naval army or the navy, so that's why he means walked in a different path. He walked in a different way to defeat means England. After a few days, by the Milan Decree, Napoleon proclaimed that any ship of any country trying to reach the England ports would be caught and confiscated. How ridiculous! What the heck is this? Means if any country they are found, if the country is found to do the trade by ignoring the means the Milan Decree or the Berlin Decree that was promulgated by Napoleon Bonaparte, if they are found, if the ship is found, if the whole crew they are found in doing trade with England by ignoring Napoleon's speech, Napoleon's instruction, they will be confiscated, means they will be seized, they will be kept in the burden, everything. So if there means they will be caught and confiscated, means confiscated, they will be seized, they will be just caught. The Berlin Decree and the Milan Decree constituted the continental system of Napoleon Bonaparte. So the Berlin Decree and the Milan Decree both are the creation or the brainchild of Napoleon Bonaparte. Against the decrees, England declared counter blockade, making it impossible for any country to import necessary articles from England. So England was also not a very coward country just like France, so that's why England also had just proclaimed another it was a counter blockade that was just introduced by England during that time. And England clearly stated that if any country is just getting stuck in doing business with their own country, means England, all the compensation will be given. There is no shred of doubt that it will be given. Even all the securities on naval, means in navy, everything, it will be just provided by England. So don't need to just read about that, you may just continue your business with us or the trade with us. So that was the most important outbreak of this means continental system. Napoleon he tried a lot to just defeat England in navy, but finally it was not successful yet. Well, the continental system was a failure as many countries resumed their business with England. And flouting the continental system, they could not just maintain, they could not just obey all the guidelines that was earlier issued by Napoleon Bonaparte. That's because Napoleon Bonaparte, he had just he was the emperor, he was administrator of France, he was not the emperor of Europe. He could just memorize that, he could just think that, but finally as because he did so, he had just issued all these things. So all the countries, they just went against Napoleon's decision. They were very much disappointed, dissatisfied, and finally what has happened, as because they had just ignored Napoleon's proclamation, and they told that we'll just continue our businesses, because without having the trade and commerce, without exporting and importing goods in our country, the country cannot be just self-developed. So that was the thing. Napoleon, however, went on a war with all such countries. This made the fall of Napoleon inevitable. So Napoleon here, he just took a very foolish policy that was just introduced by him, as because all the countries, they just went against Napoleon's doctrine, as because the doctrine of Napoleon, it was not very good yet, as because all the countries, Napoleon himself could not just decide the fate or the destiny of all the countries of the European continent. So that's why it was very much important for all the countries to just maintain the guidelines by their own. It was not just it will not be just determined by Napoleon Bonaparte. So when Napoleon Bonaparte, he just introduced all these things and finally what has happened is because all the countries of Europe, they just went previously when the the enmity or the feud kind of enmity, it was just continuously just going on between Napoleon and all the first European coalition, even all the countries in which countries the monarchical government had been just prevailed over there. So this was an inevitable fact for Napoleon Bonaparte. He just went at the same time with so many countries. Napoleon was on fire. He went just on war with all the countries at the time. So this made very much easier for all the countries to defeat Napoleon, as well as the war became inevitable with Napoleon Bonaparte with all the countries that had been just resided in Europe during that time. Thank you.